Fleck. Comix Fleck.
So I remember last year as I was walking out the movie theater after watching Bohemian Rhapsody, that what I had just witnessed from Rami Malek was something that was special and enough to earn him a nomination at the very least for Best Actor. And I even made the prediction in my review of Bohemian Rhapsody that Malek was going to win the Best Actor award. And I was right. Similarly, so, or well, more so, I feel I could have the same confidence in saying that Joaquin Phoenix is going to be the best actor in next year's Academy Awards for his portrayal in this movie of the Joker. Man, what a great movie and what a great performance by Joaquin Phoenix. So this movie is basically about the Joker or how he came to be. We've seen the trailers, we heard all the media talking about it, people online. This movie is essentially the origin story of, DC's greatest villain and, in my opinion, the best antagonist in fiction, the Joker. And this is about Arthur Fleck living in Gotham City in the early 80s, where it's just an economic ruin, unemployment's high, there's crime, there's even like this rat problem. It's really significant in terms of the society that is really in collapsing all around him. Todd Phillips wrote and directed this movie. He's mostly been known as the guy who brought his old school Road Trip, the Hangover trilogy. So mostly he's been that comedic director, that director that dealt with those raunchy comedies that I remember watching as a teenager and to my early adulthood. He is something special here with his writing and directing. He was able to tap into something here, and I don't know how he did it. I mean, haven't really been like somebody who's followed him closely or his work closely, but I know of him, and this was something I did not see coming. I know I saw in the trailers, wow, this is a new take on comic book films, on the Joker especially, and it really paid off. His work was amazing here. Next, Joaquin Phoenix. I mean, I don't know how to put into words how brilliant he was in his portrayal. Like, we could compare it, we're going to be hearing a lot about the comparisons of who's better, Heath Ledger's Joker or Joaquin Phoenix's Joker. And I think there's just so much differences in regards to their portrayals, the character, the way the characters are written in their films, the lack of a central protagonist in this film, because it's basically just a movie about the bad guy, the Joker, and how he becomes the Joker that we know, the famous DC villain, the Joker. And the writing helped a lot in this. Joaquin Phoenix's performance was incredible. It was just so vulnerable and like brutal and just mesmerizing. It was so many adjectives you could use, and it's still not enough to show how great of a film and how great of a portrayal that he had. See, the difference I see between the Joker from The Dark Knight, that's so lauded and that Heath Ledger won an Academy Award for, is that in that Christopher Nolan portrayal, in that trilogy, the Joker was already an established villain in The Dark Knight. He was a character that was already around. Remember in the beginning of Dark Knight, he was already active, doing that bank heist, and people were talking about him, about this Joker's out there already. And he played that role in such a new, different way from the previous portrayal of Jack Nicholson. But this one is a lot different. Joaquin Phoenix shows us his vulnerability, almost makes you want to sympathize with him at times. And that's definitely something new, especially for a character who we know is so brutal and such a menace to society. Which brings me to another point. A lot of the things that we saw in the trailer, essentially the main theme I saw was this thing of, was a Joker somebody that was created by society, or was he somebody who was always just mentally ill and who was bound to go that route? And I think this film does a great job at giving us, the two views of there and some curveballs in between, throughout the movie where it makes you think, okay, maybe, society made him. Maybe it was a mental illness that he had all along. And I like the way the film kind of, managed to avoid certain negative ways of portraying the mentally ill, and made it mostly about just this one character, the Joker, and not about all mentally ill people are violent, psychopathic killers. That it's just this specific person and a lot of things in his life and society at the time, and how it molded him into becoming what he finally became in the end. And I think they did a really good job at managing that really tough road in being able to be not portraying mentally ill people in such a negative light, because it's not about mentally ill people in general, about that any mentally ill person could become the Joker. It's not about that. But they also did touch on themes in regards to mental illness, in regards to society as a whole, and there's even some stuff that they peel back the layers on and throw some hints in regards to like class and rich, the poor. There's just so much stuff in there that they really go in depth in, and it's really, really great. It's really refreshing to see a comic book film touch on these themes and be able to take these bold risks that we haven't been able to see any comic book film take in the past. The Dark Knight touched on that. Well, the Dark Knight trilogy, Christopher Nolan's trilogy, touched on certain things of this, but it was mostly just about Batman. Here, it feels like a social commentary on society as a whole and all those things I mentioned, where it touches on so many different aspects, and that, I mean, it was just so dense, and it included so much without coming off as pretentious or like it's trying to be smarter than it really is. And that's what I liked about it a lot. Great themes, great acting, great performance by Joaquin Phoenix and the surrounding cast. Robert De Niro was really good in it. This film takes heavily from the early 70s Scorsese films. If you haven't seen like The Kings of Comedy with Robert De Niro, Taxi Driver with Robert De Niro, I was able to watch Taxi Driver again to kind of get me ready for what this movie was in store, or what had in store for us. And there's a lot of nods to that, a lot of imagery in regards to the Travis Bickle character from Taxi Driver. I have not seen Kings of Comedy, but another thing that this film took from was the Frank Miller's Dark Knight, the way the Joker, there's that scene where he's on the talk show as a Joker. Also, the Killing Joke took heavily from that too. So there's a lot of material that they brought in and did some things with it, took some nods from it, some imagery, some themes again, and it really came into this pot, and they just put it all together, and it came out really, really good. And it's a really I wouldn't say it's an enjoyable movie because of how brutal it is. It's a psychological drama thriller slash comic book movie, and it doesn't really come off as a comic book movie. This isn't one of those films where you're going to see superheroes or these crazy outlandish villains. There's no like people flying. There's no big world event that's gonna destroy the world or so on. This is a grounded character study of the man who becomes a Joker and how he gets there. A lot of times we watch these films and we think, how does that character get to the point where he becomes a hero? How did Clark Kent become Superman? How did Bruce Wayne become Batman? Iron Man, or Tony Stark, how did he become Iron Man? This flips it and says, you know what? How did this man become the Joker that we all know? And God, it was so incredible. Not fun, so brutal. A lot of stuff in here that I could see how a lot of people would watch this film and feel just uneasy about it and maybe not like it in terms of the kind of things that they include in it. Some of the violence, I get it. I mean, but I think you have to look at that in context. It's not about glorifying anything like negative. It's not about making the Joker this symbol of that you want to strive to be, but it's more of a reflection on society and how we treat people, how society molds people into who they are, including, the stuff that they already have that's going on personally. So, how they say it takes like a village to raise a child. I think that's true when it comes to this. Like, it takes a society to create its villains. It takes a society to create its heroes. And I think it's done really, really well here in demonstrating that theme. So I love this movie. This movie for me is up there. Watching it Thursday night and having some time to sleep on it and really have it soak in and think about it. Again, well, in terms of comparing it to Heath Ledger's Joker, it's hard because they're so different and there's so many things about them that they come at it from different angles. The different perspectives, the portrayals, and how the actors Heath Ledger and Joaquin Phoenix, how they came about being the Joker. And in terms of The Dark Knight, which is still the gold standard, it's right up there, number one best comic book movie, best superhero movie of all time, bar none. I mean, I don't think there's even a discussion there. This movie is probably the first movie I've seen since then that really gives it really gets into discussion for it, really creates that debate of, is this movie really something that, it's like the LeBron James, Michael Jordan debate. That's how I feel this is right here. It's like some people might think, wow, this is the best one. Other people might think, no, it's still got to be The Dark Knight. I think it's definitely up for discussion, and that's how great this movie is. Warner Brothers, DC, you guys knocked it out the park with this one. Keep going with this. Keep going with this. These are the kind of films that I think your rival Disney is just not able to make, and you should embrace this and go with it. And you don't have to try to do the whole the way that Justice League movie was and how awful it was. You don't have to try to be like Marvel and Disney. You could be your own thing and have your own kind of genre of comic book movies, because we've seen Disney Marvel films have essentially been one big, kid-friendly, very, very comedic kind of movies, while DC Warner Brother films have been more open to take risks and be bold. And there's been some failures there, but I think they have more license, more of a range to open up for wider audiences. I mean, that's just the way I see it. I know there's this big DC Marvel fight, but I mean, they don't have to be in the same lane. You can have the Disney movies in one, the DC movies in the other, and they don't really have to compete as in which one's better or worse, but just different avenues, you know what I mean? And I think this film is a good way to go that route. And I love the way they're going with this movie. If they keep this up, I'm hoping that Matt Reeves' Batman film is in the same vein as this. We need movies like this that really push the boundaries and open it up for, the opportunity for comic book movies to just expand in their genre. And I mean, like I said, I love this movie. It opens the doors for comic book movies. It pushes the boundaries, and I think it earns the praise that it's getting. So I loved it. I recommend watching it for certain people. This is not a PG-13 movie. This definitely has that R rating that it's earned, and that's just the way I feel, guys. It's great. It's a great movie. So if you get the chance to watch it, I definitely recommend watching it. If you're an adult, if you're under 18, or if you're really young, don't take your kids to this. This is not you know, the same Joker from the animated series in the 90s. This is a really complicated, nuanced, R-rated Joker. So no kids, all right? Tell me what you guys think about this in the comments below. Did you guys see it yet? Are you gonna watch it? Let me know, share your thoughts. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.
Comix,